My name is Mark Musser. Actually, my first name is Robert, but again, I was too many Roberts in the family, so they call me Mark. And so we have. I grew up on a small farm in Olympia, Washington, and I've lived there my whole life. And I used to spend significant amount of time in Portland Avenue because my uncle, great uncle, was a missionary, but he would on furlough. He would come home and he would help pastor, I guess, at the Covenant Church, which is not. Is it still in existence? Yeah.
It's still got the now.
It's changed.
I see. Okay. Yeah.
Is it Ukrainian?
Oh, that's interesting. Huh?
It's Eastern European.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think
Huh.
I think it might be Ukrainian.
Did I pass it when we came in here?
Almost minaret-like towers on it.
It's that big church. So that was it there. Wow. Yeah, we saw it. Okay, interesting. Yeah. So interesting that I kind of know Portland Avenue, and I thinking, I wonder if that church is the same church where Uncle Ernie was. So anyway, I'm glad that I'm back. I'm glad to meet you guys. So the name of our group, forgive me for the name, it's called Ararat Rainier East-West Fellowship. The reason why I picked that name is because, number one, Mount Rainier used to be my favorite mountain, but now Mount Ararat is my favorite mountain now. Forgive me for that too. The mountain of Noah. We were missionaries in Armenia for 3 years, and I know that Mount Ararat is in Armenia. I mean, in Turkey. But when you live in the Yerevan, the capital city of Armenia, Mount Ararat dominates the skyline, and it's like Mount Rainier. I mean, it's even bigger. It almost makes Mount Rainier look small. Yes, that's Mount Ararat, and Rainier is here. This is from Indian Henry's hunting, that lake there that's up there. I forget the name of the lake, but Indian Henry's hunting ground. So Mount Rainier. So I knew no one would pick that name. It's not going to be a problem. I've had this problem. I pick a name and then someone calls me on the phone, you can't use that name because, we got it. I said, okay. So this name, no problem. Our treasurer calls it a roof. So we have a website. You can see it there, aroof.org. And we have a Spokane address. Our daughter Rachel, I think she was here. She was doing lots of things for us. And also one of her friends, Tony, who is now a pastor in Ephrata, Washington in the middle. He's our treasurer, and now he's a pastor. Anyway, so they have a Spokane address. That's where we do where we send things and where our mail is through there. We this year, and I'll explain a little bit the history of what's going on here, but we have done ministry on both sides of what we would call the Russian front. And I never expected that, but this is what happened. I never imagined this could happen, but it did. So for many years, I'll just give sort of a history of how this all came about. So I met Karen in '93. We got married. I was going to seminary in Portland, Oregon, at Western Seminary. Dr. Rodmacher was the leader of that seminary in those days. And then I graduated in '94 with a Master of Divinity, and then we were getting calls from people that we knew, some of the same friends that maybe you've heard some of these names. And one man called me, and he said, we need teachers in Mogilov, Belarus. Of course, the Soviet Union had collapsed, and I was in seminary. Lots of guys were coming in, telling us how there's great opportunities in the former Soviet Union, and so it was interesting to me. And so we decided to go because the Mogilov had a school, basically a college. It was called the Machine Building Institute, one of the premier schools in all of Belarus, in all of the Soviet Union. And they had men, pastors, professors teaching Bible classes to 80 to 100 students in a class. And they actually incorporated Bible classes into the curriculum of the school for a short amount of time. So they needed more teachers, and the demand was there, and so we took it and grabbed it. I thought it'd be a good opportunity. And we go there, and the KGB comes in and shuts it down. So that's the story of my life. It's just how it is. So I missed that opportunity that they had. However, we focused on the church there that was there. A church came out of it. Jim Myers, some of you may have heard of him. He was probably one of the primary founding father of that church, if you want to call him that. But other people helped too, including Village Ministries International. We worked with them back then. And so out of that came that church. But because of pressure from the government, there was lots of problems. And a lot of people had to leave because it was just chaos. And so one missionary stayed behind to help the church survive, and they did. And by a miracle of God, they're still functioning. However, that church has never been, in my mind, has never been established properly because of all the chaos. They have a pastor there. He's a great guy. He loves his people. He's a good shepherd. He just can't teach very well. It's a problem. And it's not his gift. And so ever since that time, we have gone to Belarus as much as possible, but we'll go do workshops there, we'll go do seminars, but then we have to come home. However, because of the war, after all these years, 95, 96 is when we lived there. After all these years, because of the war, there was an opportunity for my wife. They actually called us to go there. She's an international school teacher because nobody wanted to go to Minsk because of the war. In Belarus, the capital of Belarus, they said, we need teachers in Minsk. This was an answer to prayer that we had prayed a number of years ago. And we never imagined that this would happen during the war. So we know Belarus, we know the people there. We weren't scared or intimidated by it, even though it can be a dangerous place, especially now. I don't like anything that's going on there. But anyway, last year was super. We had a great year. And it was good to be back with everybody. They were so excited, so thankful. We just had a really good year. And then I also went to Ukraine. So we in Armenia. So we have ministries there too. Probably spent a month in Ukraine this last year. So I'll give you an update of what's going on there. But we, in spite of all the chaos and the war, we had a super year. Very, very good year. So here we have a map of Russia and Belarus, you see to the north, and Ukraine. Belarus means white Russia. So Beli means white, right? And then Rus, it's white Russia. And so that's been there for a long time. They used to call it Belorussia. They never really had their own country until recently, but they've always had what you would call the Belarusian culture. Okay, Ukraine is very similar. So they've never really had their own country until the 20th century, but they've always had Ukrainian language and Ukrainian culture. And Belarusian and Ukrainian are very close together. They're almost the same. I can understand both. I speak Russian, but I understand Ukrainian and Belarusian pretty well. And I really can't tell the difference between them. I mean, they're so similar to each other. And they also are for each other in this war personally. Publicly, with regard to the government, they are against, Ukraine with the leadership, because these are just former communists that just took over the country, and they rule the country with an iron fist. Lately, they've kind of loosened up a little bit, and that's part of the reason why we're able to go back. But still, it's a problem. And, people, they really are not for this war at all. Now, people in Russia would be. And there, the propaganda is really thick. It's about this high up to the ears. And of course, it is here too, on both sides. But still, the Russian propaganda is bad as well. So Russia, we've also done ministries in Russia in the Far East, especially in Krasnoyarsk and Siberia, because Jim Myers, who was initially in Mogilov, Belarus, because of the problems, he went down to Kiev. He later invited us to join, so Karen and I joined him. We became good friends in Mogilov. I don't know him from the States. So we became good friends working together, and we worked together really strongly for 6 years in Kiev. We established a church there. A Bible college came out of this. And so this was really good. Of course, Jim is the primary guy, but we helped a lot. And ever since that time, we've had, I was teaching all the time in Ukraine. Things were wide open. He told me, Mark, you've got to come here. Things are wide open. I'm thinking, yeah, sure. That's what I heard the first time. But anyway, it was true in Ukraine, and so we did lots of things. I was teaching constantly, and we got done with that. And Jim, after 6 years, we decided to come back home because there's another backstory. Jim says, he said, within 6 years, you've got more experience teaching than probably most pastors in 30, 35 years, and he was actually true. It was right, but the demand was there, and so we took advantage of it. The backstory is we also had a Bible study situation trying to develop a church in Olympia, Washington for a number of years too, starting in the late 80s. So Pastor Ron Breckel, my favorite all-time Bible teacher that changed my life, taught me grace, taught me the seriousness of God's Word. It changed my life forever. And so he's been trying to get a church established in Olympia for many years. And finally, he came down in the late 80s. We did a Bible study together. I got some people together organized a little group, and then over a matter of 15 years, finally they were ready to start a church. So we did that in 2004, and now there's a church called Grace Redeemer Bible Church we helped establish. So even though I was in Ukraine for 6 years, I would go back and forth a lot to Ukraine. We got the church going in Olympia, and so I did that for a number of years, and then the ministry was going so well in Ukraine because I worked with another group called DM2 with Brett Nasworth. He became a friend through our daughter Rachel, and they were friends with his daughter, and they met at a Bible camp, and so we got to know each other through that. And he had a very effective ministry in how to get the natives involved with teaching. And so we started to implement what he was doing, and we did this in Ukraine, and we were, it was just great. It was just super, the things that were going on. And I decided, Karen, I think we need to think about going back to the mission field because things are going so well. And then we had a young guy, Andy Stacy. He was able to take over the church. And so we put our name into the hat of going back to the former Soviet Union. And this time, because it's hard to raise money, I used my wife, forgive me, she's a school teacher. And when we lived in Kiev, Ukraine many years ago, she taught for 3 years at the Kiev International School. Our kids went there. And it was a very good school. It had a Christian background. I mean, it was actually a pretty solid school. So I thought if we ever go back to the mission field, let's get more serious about this school. And if you get hired from the States, they give you many more perks. So we did that. And but we wanted either Minsk or Kiev. And they says, no, there's no opportunities there. So we kind of gave up on them a little bit. But then they said, there's an opportunity in Yerevan, Armenia. So that's right down at the bottom, right here. You see Armenia down there. So I looked at the map, well, where's that? Oh, wow, okay, Mount Ararat is right there. Armenia, it's a very Soviet background. They speak Russian there. I can survive. We can do some ministry there too. So we decided we'll go. And we were there for 3 years, had a great time. But then I would go to Ukraine a lot. And we were doing lots of good things in Ukraine too. Went to Belarus for like a couple of weeks, because of Christmas. So we did some things that we couldn't do from the States. Things were really going well up until COVID came in, and the cancel culture took over. Basically put us out of business to some extent. Maybe cut our ministries in half, and now we have the war situation. So that's what's going on a little bit over the last 25 years, and we're kind of right in the East-West fellowship, the East-West divide. And so there was a war in Armenia when we were there too. So Azerbaijan was starting to do problems there, starting to create problems for Armenia. I've been told by a number of people, everywhere you go, there's a war. I said, yeah, I understand. So we were sent to Kazakhstan because of the virus madness. Okay, they sent us to Kazakhstan for a year. There were protests there too. And then our plan was to, okay, we can go to Kazakhstan for a year. I'm going to retire my wife. We bought a home in Irpin, Ukraine, and then we'll move there. I can do ministry, and then she can not worry about working anymore. Well, the war broke out, okay, and so we were without a job and without a home last spring. And then Minsk calls us, hey, we need a teacher in Minsk. So that's what we're doing now in Minsk, and we're on the other side of the Russian front. Amazing. Belarus is a very controlled country. So that's Karen's director. I asked him to take a picture. There's his president picture on the wall there. They came in. They were going to shut down the school back in the spring. And the director said, wait a minute, because they've shut down every international school except for this one. And he said, wait a minute, you be careful here, because first of all, we have very few Americans here that you'd be concerned about. Secondly, we have Chinese diplomats. They send their kids to school, and those are your allies. We've got other people too. So they backed off. And he also said, we also give them, just by being here, $1 million to the city of Minsk just by being here. So for now, they backed off. They said, we'll be back. And they will be back. But anyways, in spite of that, we had a good year. So Minsk is a capital city. 2 million people live there. Initially, the first part of the 20th century, very Jewish. Probably 20% maybe was Jewish. And that whole area of Belarus, very Jewish. And of course, after World War II, they're all gone. So very few Jewish people. There are some, but very few today. So a lot of them would escape. Those who escaped, they went to the east and to Russia. And then a lot of them, of course, were killed in the Holocaust. Ukraine had the same type of situation. So there's Karen's school, Minsk International School. And another reason why I use my wife too is that because the school, once they hire you from the States, not only do they pay for your place to live in, secondly, they provide visas and residencies, which is huge. Okay, when we lived in Ukraine, and even Ukraine, we had troubles at the beginning, but not later. At the very beginning in Belarus, it's just a nightmare to to get a visa, and it was only good for 3 months, and you got to rehash this thing all over again. Now we have multi-entry visas; we can go in and out. We can live there. You have access to all the things that are provided by by the government. So in terms of banking and that type of stuff, so that is super. It's unbelievable. So we even have a car there. So strange, Kazakhstan, they had strange laws like everywhere, what I call legalism. So we could not purchase a car. So the money piled up, and then it was sent to Belarus, and so we had enough money to buy a car. And we've been driving all over. Minsk to Mogilov is a 2-hour drive, and it's been great. The Lord's blessing. It's been a very, very good time. Amazing. I never dreamed that I'd be driving in Belarus of all places. I get kind of scared because this is too good to be true, and yeah, maybe something's going to happen to where we'll be told to go home. But anyway, we had a good year. So Mogilov, there's the church right there. You see it, that brick building. The KGB allowed churches to be built if it's just a private home and they have like a gentleman's agreement. If you guys don't talk against the government, you're welcome to have your own church. Just watch out. So that's sort of what basically is going on in Belarus. What I'm doing is illegal. They do not allow any foreigners to come in and teach, but I do it anyway. I mean, the Word of God is more important than, we know this from the book of Acts. And so they have not bothered me. No one has touched me. They could, something to pray about. I don't think they will. I'm not worth it. Of course, this war could change things to where that would put me in trouble. But they know who I am. I have a dossier like that. Okay, they have spies in the church. They know exactly what's going on, and they don't care for the time being. So I think that's a good sign that we did a lot of ministry this year, and no one seems to be concerned. What I don't like right now is that Wagner fella. He has been sent to Belarus now, and this is really bad. And I could talk a little bit about Wagner too. It's not really good. This guy was basically the composer for the National Socialists. The Nazis enjoyed that guy. I mean, he provided the musical background for National Socialism. And he was very anti-Semitic. He took a German philosophy. Today we call it existentialism, but it was very anti-Semitic philosophy. He put it to music. And then the Nazis, of course, turned the Holocaust into an opera of sorts, based on this guy, his music. And Hitler just loved this guy. So it's very interesting to me that this general, whoever he is, he's a mercenary, is going to name his group after Wagner. It's basically like an SS group. And then they're fighting Nazis in Ukraine. And look there are some Nazis in Ukraine, but there are more neo-Nazis in France than in Ukraine. Okay, and today, by the way, neo-Nazis are not real Nazis. They're just punks. It's all propaganda, guys. They're just punks. They're just kids. Has nothing to do with what the real National Socialists were doing. The real National Socialists are kind of like the socialists we see in our own country right now. Those are the real ones. They're just punks. Okay, it's not real. This neo-Nazi stuff they're all talking about is just a bunch of foolishness. So anyway, we had a good year in Mogilov, and there's that building. I was able to get back. It's called the Word of Life Baptist Church. They're really a Bible church, but because of the laws, they had to become a Baptist church, and that's it. I mean, it's very controlled there. We've been ministering in Mogilov for many years, so now this year is able to teach John 1-5. So we've done that each Sunday. Every 2 Sundays I'm there at church, and then we have like a little break at lunch, and then 2-3 hours after lunch we'll have like another Bible study. We taught Proverbs. We taught Christ our Substitute. We got through some things that we had not finished up from years before. So that went very well. And I'm there in Mogilov once a week, either during the week once or on a Sunday, depending on what week it is. So that was what we did this year. We had a good time becoming reacquainted with everybody. Here's the church in Mogilov. There's the pastor Andre, super guy. He loves the Lord. He's a shepherd. Here's the church that we've helped to encourage people at over this last year for the Christmas holidays. And, we did some teaching, Christ our substitute. When, I focus on the cross. What does it mean? That's the most important thing. If people understand that, that's like a foundation for their lives once they get a hold of that. We think we understand the cross, but you can really dig in deep. So that's what Christ your substitute does. He spends a lot of time explaining what does the cross really mean and how does it relate to my salvation, but also my sanctification, my daily walk with God. We also taught Proverbs, so we did that too. These are workshops that we had left, that we had to leave because of the virus and, of course, and now the war. But now, because of the war, we're back in there. We're able to finish up some things that were left hanging. At the same time, we were excited to start some ministries in Minsk. So that's also going to capital city. So it's a 2-hour drive, but we live in Minsk. Very interesting. The main interpreter of our Bible college in Kiev, his name is Andrei Kazmovich. He is from Belarus. And when the school put us, we didn't ask anything. The school put us in an apartment, and it's 5 minutes away from his old church. So I can walk there, it's 5 minutes. So that opened some doors for us. So we're doing some ministries there, like evangelism in English that went well. I'm now teaching at their church once a month. And, again, this has just been amazing that the Lord opened up doors for that. Also, the Minsk International Church. So Karen's colleague, his name is Sasha, and he's been teaching that church for many, many years. Everybody left him, basically, because that's life in Belarus. And he, was established by American missionaries, and they all had to leave because of all the chaos and the control. And he's a full-time teacher, so it's really hard for him to be a pastor and be a full-time teacher. So we're there now, and he's got me up teaching twice a month. It's all in English, so that's been really great. And you have people from all over the world it's a small group, but still, it's a good opportunity. Also teaching English evangelism at New Land Church. That's Andrei Kosmovich's old church. And then also a new ministry is developing at the Word of Grace Bible Church, which is also in Minsk. I didn't know anything about this church. It came through a contact in Lviv when I was there in May. She wanted me to give them a gift. I was in Lviv, and she said, I got some friends there, and now we have, it looks like, a good relationship will develop with this new church we knew nothing about in Minsk. So they've already talked to me. They want to do more serious discipleship things in Minsk. So the Lord has really opened up some doors for us. I'm just politically, it's just not, what's going to happen. I don't know. That's another story. So here's the International Church, an example. There you see Sasha. Sasha's a great guy. Relatively, he's pretty grace-oriented, which is good. He is reformed. And so, but I don't push him in some of these areas, although lately he's listening a little bit more, and you can pray for him. It's hard to break through some of that stuff, and I'm not going to push my way around. I don't. I really work around people. Just learned to work around things and not worry about the debates that can happen, and I just do my best to do that. And it's working. It's worked in Armenia especially. It's working in Minsk as well too. So we have a home Bible study on Thursday nights. So we're doing Christ our substitute. Again, I assume that people don't really understand the cross. If they did, they would not be involved with some of this legalistic type stuff that's being taught. So we really spent a lot of time with that, and we've had a good time teaching a good group on Thursday nights. Here's our little English club at the New Land Church at night. And that man there, the bald head there, he's not bald, he just shaves his head. His name is Losha. He's not a believer. So he's coming, and we're talking some, I give him like the book of Ruth to read. We talked about creation, give him new vocabulary, things like this. We've talked a little bit about the cross. The last Sunday I was there, or the last Tuesday, I should say, I was there Tuesday night. Karen's there teaching, so she can help too. And we're going to put Rachel to work, I think, too. She's an English second language specialist, so I think we can put her to work. She's going to join us. I'll show you in a later slide. She's going to live with us. Not with us personally, but she's going to live in Minsk, and she'll teach at the school. So she can also help with English. So again, these are good opportunities for us, and he's listening. The last Tuesday I was there, we had a big discussion about Lordship salvation and John MacArthur and his teaching. And so, people they're listening.